What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got another fun video for you guys. This one, I'm going to be looking at a Golgari list, I like to call Forerunners of Eternity. It's built around the Black Finale, Finale of Eternity, for X, Black, Black. Destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. If X is 10 or more, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So basically what we're trying to do is self-mill, fill up our graveyard with a bunch of creatures, ramp up to at least 12 mana so we can cast this for 10, clear out any creatures on our opponent's side of the board, or at least their biggest threats, and boom, just get all of our creatures down with hopefully an End-Raze Forerunner. This is 7/7 Vigilance, Trample, Haste. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. So yeah, imagine getting like 10, 15 creatures back with End-Raze Forerunners, giving them all Trample and +2/+2 until end of turn. Yeah, that's the hopefully the end game there. And so the way we're trying to do that is starting off with the Mire Triton as a 4 of course. It's a 2/1 with a Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, the top 2 cards of your library go to your graveyard and you gain 2 life. So this is just a really great card on its own. Gives a little bit of life gain against aggressive matchups. We get to fill up our graveyard. And it's got the Death Touch, so it can be a good offensive or defensive threat depending on the board state. Also in the 2-drop slot, we have 4 Glowspore Shamans. It fills our graveyard and it can sort of ramp us up in a way. As for black and green, we get a 3/1 Elf Shaman. When it enters the battlefield, the top 3 cards of your library go to your graveyard, and we may put a land card from your graveyard on top of our library. So we are trying to get to 12 mana as quickly as possible, so any lands that you mill with either of these 2 cards or any of the other self-mill cards that we have, Glowspore Shaman can come down and get a land back, maybe a Castle Locthwain, an Overgrown Tomb, maybe a Fabled Passage, something like that. Just anything that kind of help get us to 12 lands as quickly as possible. And on the 3-drop slot, we got 4 Gorging Vultures. It's a 2/2 for 2 and a black flyer. When it enters the battlefield, the top 4 cards from our library go to our graveyard, and we gain 1 life for each creature card put into our graveyard this way. So obviously getting to 12 lands is going to take some time. And so having all the incremental life gain with the Mire Triton, Gorging Vulture, and some of our other cards works really well against the more aggressive matchups, in particular mono red. We've had some pretty favorable matchups in the games I've play tested this with so far. Another versatile threat, also something that can help us gain life, is 4 Murderous Riders. It's a 2/3 life-linking zombie knight. Also has the Swift End instant speed removal for creatures or planeswalkers. So yeah, very versatile and powerful threat. It does count as a creature, so Finale can bring it back onto the battlefield. That's a pretty sweet synergy there. And we're running one of Loaming Shaman. It's a 2 and a green for a 3/2. And when this enters, target player shuffles any number of target cards from their graveyard into their library. So Finale of Eternity, since we are trying to get to 12 mana and save it specifically for that use. We're only running just a 2 of, because we do want to see it once and only once most of the time. But since we're running so much self-mill, if we do mill it before we're ready to cast it, Loaming Shaman can come down and put it back into our, shuffle it back into our library so we can kind of draw into it later once we're ready to go off. A couple Rankle, Master of Pranks, as a powerful 3/3 flying haste. And when it deals combat damage to a player, we get to choose any number of these 3. We can make each player discard a card, we can make each player lose 1 life and draw a card, or we can make each player sacrifice a creature. So we are trying to fill our graveyard, so we've got no problem with sacrificing creatures if we need to get rid of something on our opponent's end, especially if it's like something hexproof, like a Dream Trawler or something like that. We don't mind necessarily even discarding creature cards if we know we're going to get them back with Finale. And if we just need to draw, we can always consider that option as well. Obviously, getting End-Raze Forerunners into our graveyard would probably be the ideal situation with Rankle. Discarding that so we can Finale it back later safely from our graveyard, not have to worry about holding it in our hand. A couple Venomous Hierophants. Just a 3 and a black for a 3/3 Death Touch. So that's pretty decent. But mostly it's in there because we get to put the top 3 cards of our library into our graveyard. So it's another self-mill. And as Death Touch, it's a nice defensive threat. So keep our opponent at bay from being so aggressive with their attacks. Also in the 4-drop slot, running a couple Polukranos. Just works really well with the rest of our deck because it does have escape. So if we need to go on like the beatdown plan, we can just escape it with all the creatures and other cards that we've milled into our graveyard. And it's got these other powerful abilities where we can fight other target creatures. And of course, just at 4 mana, it enters with 6 +1/+1 counters on it. And if you escape it, it escapes with 12 +1/+1 counters on it instead. So it's really great against like removal heavy decks and things like that. Assuming it doesn't get exiled, of course. And moving on to the 5-drop slot, running the Cavaliers. So 2 Cavalier of Night, just a nice removal spell. And another way to kind of maybe get some more value out of our creatures. As for 4/5 lifelink, when it enters the battlefield, we can sacrifice another creature. And when we do, destroy target creature and opponent controls. That's for 2 and triple black. And then when it dies, we return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. So we can get our Gorging Vulture, Glowspore Shaman, Mire Triton, things like that back, and just kind of keep filling up our graveyard for when we're ready to finale. Get that off. And the Cavalier of Thorns, of course, ramps us and fills up our graveyard as well. For 2 and triple green, we get a 5/6 with reach. We don't have a whole lot of game against flyers. I mean, we obviously have Rankle and the Gorging Vulture. But, you know, against bigger threats, the Cavalier is pretty nice. And when it enters, reveal the top 5 cards of our library, and we get to put a land card from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest go into your graveyard, so that synergizes with everything we're trying to do. And when it dies, you can exile it. If we do, put another target card from your graveyard on top of your library. So we're not usually going to use this. The only time we might want to is if we finale and are in danger of milling ourselves. We can just pick a card and make sure it goes to the top of of our library so we don't mill out if we have to go to a draw step. And also another way to kind of help us mill, and then something that synergizes really well with End-Raze Forerunners, getting the +2/+2 and trample, is Beanstalk Giant. For 3 mana, we can search our library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. It doesn't even enter tap, so that's super sweet. And then for 7 mana, we get a 0/0 where its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. So obviously we are trying to ramp up to at least 12 to get our finale off. So this thing can get really big really fast. And it can also enable itself by searching for lands in the earlier game. Alright, we already went over the one End-Raze Forerunners. And the other final spell is a couple Molderhulks. It's just a nice 6/6 with Undergrowth, where it costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. So oftentimes you can cast this for even 2, sometimes 3 or 4. And when it enters, we get to return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So again, we're just trying to ramp up, and this is another way to do this, and it synergizes really well with our deck. Just the 2 of them, because it could be, you know, rather expensive, depending on our board state, especially like our opening hand, something like that. Going over the mana base, we've got a couple Castle Locthwains. Just kind of help us refuel in the mid to late game, since we are trying to get to that point where we can get to 12 lands. 6 swamps, 8 forests, of course all 4 Overgrown Tombs, and then the 4 Fabled Passage for all the fixing, since we do have a lot of intensive mana costs, you know, triple green, triple black, things like that. Alright, and going over the sideboard real quick, we got the 3 Agonizing Remorse for the hand disruption against the mid-range and control type decks, as we get to look at our opponent's hand and choose a non-land card from it, or even their graveyard, and we can exile that card, and then we do lose 1 life. So if we want to get rid of something in their hand, like a counterspell or a sweeper, or if we just want to exile something from their graveyard, like a Croxa or something with escape on it, we can do that, so that's pretty powerful. A couple Legion's End, so we are kind of more of a late game deck, so Legion's End kind of gives us an answer to any earlier threats, where for 1 and a black at sorcery speed, we can exile target creature and opponent controls with CMC 2 or less, and all other creatures that player controls with the same name as that creature. And the same thing with their hand, and we also get to look at their hand as well, so that's a pretty powerful spell for 2 mana. Since there are so many, you know, 4 ofs things like that. You know, Steamkin, you know, pretty much all the creatures in mono red, except for like Annex and Torbrand, of course. But we have other ways to deal with those guys. And a couple of Liliana's Triumph, because you really just need ways to kind of get around Hexproof with Dream Trawlers running around, and even like a Paradise Druid with Sentinel's Eyes, things like that. Kraul Harpooner, it's a 3/2 reach, just kind of another way to kind of help us deal with flyers. It's just a powerful body as a 3/2 for 2. And then when it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature with flying you don't control. Kraul Harpooner gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Then you may have Kraul Harpooner fight that creature. So it doesn't deal damage at fight, so it could definitely die, but if it at least takes out a flyer from our opponent's end, that could be worth it in most situations. And then another way to kind of help us with those really aggressive decks is a couple of Lovestruck Beast. Where for 1 green we can get a 1/1 human creature token, and then for 3 mana we get a 5/5. Of course, you can't attack unless you control 1/1, but that's mostly in there for defensive purposes. We're not too worried about that. And a couple of Thrashing Brontodons as our artifact and enchantment hate, as it's a 3/4 for 3, which is really good against aggressive decks. And then for 1 mana instant speed, we can sack it to destroy an artifact or an enchantment. So that works really well against like mono red to get rid of an Ember Cleave or things like that. And we're not really so good against the counterspell deck, so you know, a couple Shifting Ceratops helps us out with that, as it's a 5/4 for 2 green. Can't be countered, has protection from blue, and then we can also pay green to give it reach, trample, or haste until end of turn. So just a nice, powerful card in the right matchup. All right, let's jump into some best of 3 and see if we can get our finale off. Finale for 10 or more. Where are we at? Forerunners of Eternity, Arena Standard Best of 3. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you're at. Alright, here we are against Mikhail 347. Like we will be on the draw. Our opponent got the 204 card deck. Wow. Looks like Arena's bugging out a little bit. We are on the draw, and we do have some life gain. I think we're okay to keep this. Got a couple draws to find our 3rd land. Saying hello. Say hello back. The sweet Kunaros pet. Okay, Slesny. Just say enchantments, but sweet. They got the Growth Chamber Guardian. If they find a land and go for the activation. Could be a little rough. Nope. Hero of the Pride. Okay. Be a little bit careful here. I think we just want to get rid of that Growth Chamber Guardian before they start getting in for 4 and searching for more. Hero of the Pride isn't too big of a threat just yet. Okay, now it is. We have a second Murderous Rider to answer that. And if they're playing Hydra's Growth, then they're probably playing, I would imagine like a Cetessan Training or something like that. So let's wait and see if they try to enchant it with anything else before we go for the Murderous Rider play. Passioned Orb. Sure. We'll take out the hero. Take 2 instead of 4 and then get rid of their biggest threat. I guess first, just to be mana efficient, we'll get our Venomous Hierophant down. Get a blocker for the Orador at least. And we'll start getting our Gorging Vultures down. We can block the healer. The healer's hawk. No attacks. Okay. Land. That's perfect. Now we can play both vultures. Pretty soon the Molderhulk will be online, and we have these Murderous Riders to fall back on as well to kind of help gain a little bit of life back. Well, there went one finale, so hopefully we can find a Loaming Shaman to get it back. Okay. No attacks. We're back up to 15. But this 4/4 Conclave Cavalier is going to be a little tricky. Too worried about their life total since we can. Wow, that's pretty powerful. Yeah, let's Polukranos and Molderhulk. Seems pretty sweet. What do we got? Fabled Passage? Yeah, let's do it. Just crack it now and get rid of our priority. Green is fine. Let's show a little bit of aggression. Attack with the 2/2 flyers. So we got Polukranos, Molderhulk, and the 3/3 Death Toucher. So we're in a decent spot. Can't imagine they're playing like Shadow to the Sky or anything like that, since they're very creature focused themselves. I'll probably just attack with the vultures again. The healer's hawk. Don't want to be too aggressive because they are showing quite a bit of board presence, so I think we're happy just trading our 4 power in the air for their 1 power plus the life. Keep the graveyard plan rolling along. Hopefully we don't know our second finale of eternity. Okay, we do get some more life. Life back. Found some creatures to mill. Perfect. We got a decent board state. Murderous Rider can chump block, go back into our library. And we have our 6/6s on board and a 3/3 Death Toucher, so they still don't have good attacks. And yeah, we'll attack with our 3 flyers. They want to chump one of them with their hawk. That's fine. We're still in a pretty good state. We don't want to sit back and wait for finale, even though that's how we'd like to close this out. With all the power and everything on their side, we need to be careful not to be too passive. And we could always use Polukranos to pick off the healer's hawk as well. Let's fight the Cavalier in response. Okay, so that does. Outmuscle fizzles. We do get a couple of 2/2s. Some Daxos triggers. Let's quick resolve all. Sure. They don't have good attacks, but we'll see if they decide to force the issue. Okay. How do we want to block? I think that's pretty easy. Actually, let's get rid of Daxos. Like, care about the Cavalier? I think that's fine. fight the Healer's Hawk. Just get that off the board. We go to 15, they go to 19. So they now have 4 2/2s that can block on the ground. I think we just attack all and then set for Polukranos. We'll keep him back as a chump blocker. See how they block. So yeah, this deck is good enough to kind of win on its own. But ideally, we want the finale win. And we had exactly lethal there. Didn't even do the math. Sweet. Alright, so we're up against the 200 card pile of Selesnya. I mean, 200 cards, they could have, you know, Shadow the Skies and things like that, but it's kind of hard to expect them when you're running so many cards. Kind of like the idea of bringing in some Legion's Ends. The Hierophant definitely stopped their Cavaliers. I guess the Lovestruck Beast stops them pretty well. Just kind of hard with 200 cards, you just have no clue what they're going to draw into. Rankle put in work there, but I think I'd rather have some Legion's End to kind of deal with their lower curve creatures. We probably need some Thrashing Brontodons, as they're likely to have like Banishing Lights and things like that. Hopefully we can grind them out to a finale win this time. Three lands, got all our colors. Finale is in hand, not ideal, but it's there when we need it. Just Overgrown Tomb. Next thing we can Castle Locthwain and Glowspore Shaman. Second, sure. Swamp is fine. We want all the land, so yeah, we'll take the forest. Flower, sure. If they attack in, I'm happy to trade. Especially if they have any kind of enchantments or pump spells, which Selesnya is known to do. Gracious Hygiene, fight our Shaman. Oh wait. They only have 2 mana open there? Nice. So maybe a newer player? Alright. Well, we could Loaming Shaman. I want to keep this Murderous Rider open. I mean, we have the finale in hand, so we're not too worried about that. I guess I don't mind getting these 2 back. We just have a long way to go. Hierophant can come down next turn and kind of mill some more. And I'm sure we'll draw into some more stuff. In the meantime, we'll at least have a 3-2 down. Fabled Passage. Like we're in need of any kind of lands in particular. So we can probably Fabled Passage whenever we want to. The reason to hold it is you can draw into more lands. Okay, 10-6. They attack with the wolf? Nope. Just get our tomb down tapped and hold up the Murderous Rider. Block the boar with our Death Toucher unless they have removal for it, in which case we will Murderous Rider it. Okay, so they're going to gain some life. Build up their creatures. Not attacking with the boar. Yeah, take that block. Keep our Death Toucher. Won't mind drawing some cards. No reason not to play this out. Nice to hold up Murderous Rider still, just in case they have something, but they are seeming like they're running on empty just about. Shaman, sure. Let's attack our Fabled Passage first, so we have the option to get that back to the top of our library, so we can ramp up. We are inching closer and closer to this finale. Good spot to attack, so we'll just pass. And we're definitely going for the finale plan, hopefully. Cavalier, sure. Exactly why we brought in the Lovestruck Beast. I think we're okay to draw here. Another Murderous Rider, perfect. Just crack it now. So we'll go for green. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're still a little ways away. But I'm fine with this board state. They just want to keep staring at it, having to stare at each other. I'm fine with that. With our 5/5, no reason not to. A couple 2/2s out of it. Sure. I think our life total is still okay. Molderhulk, sure. Let's get you down, grab some more land. Fabled Passage works for me. Let's crack it. Go black since we have these two Murderous Riders in hand. Let's see. Okay, I would like to leave one open just in case. So we'll pass for now. And we can Lovestruck Beast next turn. Imagine at some point they might get impatient and just attack all just to see what happens. But I'm fine with just building our board state, filling up our graveyard, and getting ready for a finale. Let's just get rid of it. We're doing okay on card draw. And then we can get it down as a lifelinker. We can gain some life back from the Castle Locthwain action. Fine with at least attacking in with the Hierophant. So we kill 2 of their things. And pass. Hold up Murderous Riders in case they drop a bomb here. Hero of the Pride. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We are 1 land away Shaman as a life flinker. Attack just to gain some life. Castle Locthwain, that'll kind of cancel out. And if we get one more land, we're in a good spot. Alright, what all do we have? No End-Raze Forerunners. So we want to wait for that. Let's attack with our big boy and our lifelinker. I'd like to hold out a little bit to see if we can get the End-Raze Forerunners off. They're going to jump block. Just pass for now. We'll give it a couple more turns, see if we can find our End-Raze. Board state isn't too threatening. We're going to get some extra draws with these castles. I think we need to be a little bit careful. Well, we can thin our deck. Running out of basic stuff. Play one. Pass. So definitely in a good spot. If they board wipe us, we just got the finale, and we can get our board right back. So we're going to get some life, and they're just going to slide out a token. Okay. Guess that's a safe play. More land. Just Beanstalk Giant. Attack with one, put a little pressure on him. Make him think that we got a game. Imagine they just chump block with maybe the Ferocious Pup or something. With the 2/2, okay. I'll just pass. Probably Castle Locthwain to draw. Just a land for them. And they concede. Alright, so unfortunately we weren't able to get our finale off. Got a little greedy there trying to find the End-Raze Forerunners, but okay, you can see the power of the deck. It works just fine even without that. And you can just imagine how crazy that is with a finale off. Plenty of ramp there, as you saw. We got there pretty in a reasonable fashion. And yeah, plenty of staying power with the life gain to keep the game going long. And just enough removal to take out their big threats. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed